Everyone, welcome to class tonight. As I told you last week, I am out of town on a business trip, and so you have a fill-in here in the classroom. But I trust that everybody has made it and that you have had a wonderful day. And so although I am out of town tonight, the show here in the classroom will go on. And so I'm just putting together this brief video instruction. I have some things I want to go over real quick just to remind you of with regard to the assignments and syllabus. I want to make a few comments and do some review from our material for last week, and then I will give you the agenda for tonight's class. I think there will be some interesting things that we'll do together. Just a few reminders here that assignment number 1 is due today, by tonight. You should have already uploaded that to Blackboard, and you go to week 2, the assignment number 1 link, click that, and there's a place to attach the file. You need to go ahead and get that done. The late penalty is in effect starting tomorrow, so you will be penalized if that's not turned in by tonight. Also, just a reminder that you do have the APA citation format quiz that you need to take. That's been up since about Monday. Many of you have already completed that, but if you have not yet done so, you need to get that done, and you need to finish that with a 94% grade or better. And so make sure you take a look at that. And then finally, as a reminder, like I told you, this is not in the syllabus, but for those of you that were in class last week, I had asked you to bring every week now a journal notebook, and that can be just a real simple spiral-bound notebook, something that you want to write in. But it needs to be dedicated to this class. It is something that you will turn in for a grade, and I'll be looking at that periodically throughout the course. So you don't want to write that in something that you use for other courses or other personal items. It should be a notebook specifically for this class, and I'll talk more about that here in a minute. Okay, tonight's agenda. I've got some comments and review that we'll get to here in a moment. We're going to have a couple of thinking and writing exercises along the way. This is something we will do every week, and I'm going to talk specifically about writing as a part of the theme of this course, so we'll come to that. Then you're going to watch a couple of PowerPoint lectures, one on sensing and one on memory. Those are there out of the Blackboard course that were provided for the online version of this class. And that'll kind of be an overview of chapters 3 and 4. And so you will do that. And then the evening here will close with a video clip that I'm going to have you watch. It's Sir Ken Robinson. He's a Brit, and he's an advisor and a writer and a lecturer on subjects like creativity in education, arts in education, creativity in the arts. Just a really fascinating topic. And the title of it, just to kind of tweak your interest as we get there, the title of his talk that he gives to this group is "Are Schools Killing Our Creativity?" So it's a little provocative title, but I think you'll really enjoy what he has to say and how he says it. So it's very thought-provoking, very entertaining to watch. And so that's be kind of the video we'll watch toward the end, and then you'll close the evening with some small group discussion around that video as well as the other lectures. So that's kind of the game plan for tonight's agenda. Okay, before we continue, I need you to stop, get out your journal notebook. You're going to need it here in a little bit, but I want you to prep it first because I want to give you some very specific instructions on how you're going to prep this. So go ahead and take a moment. I'll give that to you. Get that out, and then we will continue. Okay, here's what I need you to do to prep, and you'll do this each week, every time we come in as a part of our weekly writing. Open up to a clean sheet of paper, and at the top I want you to write this title. Journal Week 2 up there in that header section, and of course next week it'll be Journal Week 3. Each week should start on a fresh sheet of paper. And then for each time we have a writing activity, as the one that will be coming up here momentarily, I want you in the first line to put the word title, spell it out, and then colon, and then put a title of some kind for what this assignment. In this case, go ahead and put the word free writing. You should go ahead and watch that. And then when we get to the writing activities, your writing content will go right down here in the rest of the page. And just make sure that you skip a line after the title. That really will help it kind of be clear. It'll be easy for you to keep track as we add things several times each week, and it'll make it easier for me to find and be able to kind of review your writing. The emphasis here will be on just developing the habit of learning to write as a part of the thinking process. So I'm really going to be looking just more at the fact that you engaged this and that you've got stuff down. And we'll come back to what that will be each time. So go ahead and make sure your journal page, your first page, looks like this with the titles at the top. What is thinking? That's the main question here that is going to be all through this course. The title of the course is Critical Thinking, but the title of your book is just Thinking, because there's actually multiple kinds of thinking that all weave in together that we're very interested in as a part of developing our ability to think and to learn and to become good students and engaged in the world around us. Thinking on all kinds of fronts is really pretty important. So what is thinking? Now, last week we talked about this just briefly, and you all had some really good definitions, and there's any number of ways we could define this. But for the sake of this course, we're going to work with how your textbook has defined thinking. Here's what Kirby and Goodpasters say. Thinking is the activity of the brain that can potentially be communicated. Now, there's a typo here, it's not communication, but activity that can potentially be communicated. Now think about the different forms of communication that we engage all the time. Images, both still and video and moving, art, symbols, music, mathematics, and all the different pieces of those forms of communication, media and other things like that. But the most common, by far the most significant way that humans engage in communication is language. And language is a fundamental part of thinking. All of our thinking utilizes language in some form or another in order for it to take place, even if that language is not spoken. And we've all done this. You've stood in front of a photograph, or you have observed a situation or an experience that you've had, and mentally you have used language to help you process and evaluate and think through what your senses have observed. And you'll be looking and talking about sensory input and senses as a part of thinking later, and you read that in chapter 3. But language is really the most significant form of that, and so we need to be talking about how language is a part of thinking and how those two things go hand in hand. And when it comes to language, writing and speaking are the two dominant modes in which language is expressed. We either write it or we say it out loud. Now, there can be a mental component to language, as we've said, but in terms of our communication outward, outside ourselves, which is where we're really concerned with where thinking takes place. We don't want thinking to be something that is inside of our heads only, because we're really interested in how that is expressed externally in our interactions with the people around us and in our behaviors. That's the kind of thinking we're after, to improve that. And so writing and speaking are the two primary modes in which language is expressed, and therefore writing and speaking are significant components in our thinking processes. And more importantly, they help shape and strengthen our thinking processes. So a couple of highlights here out of your textbook that I think are really important. They say here on page 6, to understand our thinking, we need a mirror for our mind, something that will help us see, in a way, our own thoughts, because that's how we're going to learn to evaluate our own thinking. We need to see it in order to measure it and to evaluate it and to see where it can be improved or to see where it's good. So writing gives us that. I like this quote here that's a couple pages over. They say, clarity is a gift that writing gives to our thinking. And indeed, the more you develop the habit and eventually the skill of writing, the sharper your thinking becomes. Because as your thoughts move from your brain down your neck and across to your shoulder and down your arm and come out your fingertips, in the form of a pen or a pencil or a keyboard, your thoughts have to be shaped and compressed and worked on in order to come out. But when they come out in whatever form they are, and usually they're rough the first time you write thoughts down, even for good writers, when they first come out, now you've got something concrete, and it moves from thinking to a form of visual communication in which you are able to step back and observe your own thoughts. And now you begin to have the opportunity to interact with your own thinking in a much more powerful, significant way. You can hear yourself, so to speak. And so in this way, writing becomes a form of speaking to yourself. But of course, verbal speaking is also a significant component of our communication and of our thinking. When you interact with others, when you talk with others, when you dialogue with others, it provides its own kind of a mirror, because you get an opportunity for others to give you feedback in terms of what they heard you say, or they can help probe your thinking. So when you talk with somebody, you have a chance to gather data. Is what I'm saying the same as what they're hearing? Is what I mean to say the same thing that they're understanding? In other words, is my thinking clear and being clearly communicated? So those are some of the foundational reasons why writing and speaking are going to be such significant parts of not only our thinking processes, but of this course as well. And that's the reason why you're going to be writing in a journal every week, in addition to your assignments, but you're also going to be involved in a lot of dialogue in class, back and forth in our discussions when I'm back, but also dialogue with one another. So writing and speaking. Now we're going to stop right here, and in just a moment you're going to do a free writing exercise. But I want you to pause the video, and you're going to go over to a YouTube clip I've got saved here, and hopefully somebody will be able to pull that up here for us. But there's a short YouTube clip I want you to watch on free writing. So you go ahead and do that. When you get done with that video, come back to this video clip and resume, pick up from here, and continue on playing. And when you come back, I will give you the instructions about the free writing exercise that we're going to do now.